Hi, I'm Matt Levenhagen, founder of Unified Web Design, UnifiedLabs.ai, and the host of the Builders Podcast. Here on The Builders, our goal is to uncover the first principles behind building businesses, products, and services. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. And if you find value in our content, a like, share, or review is always appreciated. Let's dive in and explore the roots of innovation and progress together. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another The Builders. Today, it is a solo episode, which means that I am going to talk about building stuff. And usually it relates to what I'm building. I try to do that mostly because I do have my own business and agency, if that's what we want to call it. We're going to get into that today. And it's an episode about, yes, the building process, but also long-term, like how you build things and how over that time, really, this is something that can morph and change as the environment changes, as industries change, as economies change, as anything changes. Sometimes we need to kind of rethink things. And that's what we're going to get into today. So let's dive right in. So one of the things that has happened in my business in recent times, as with a lot of businesses, because I do connect with and witness a lot of other agencies in different ways, either through personal relationships or just seeing communities, that there's agencies that come and go. Some agencies do well, some are struggling, some go out of business, some go back to freelancing, but there's a lot. I think there's a lot more than average right now. You know, I have agency relationships I've had for years that they are, as a digital marketing agency, are struggling right now, or not getting the projects they used to, and that's going to happen, right? But hopefully not. We hope for the best, but we must prepare for the worst, kind of thing. But in this case, it's like what I'm doing, and my goal here is to share this with you in case it's something you're dealing with today, or maybe it's something you deal with in the future, or just maybe in general, just make you think about things a little bit differently. That's my goal, to have a positive impact of some kind. So what I'm going to be talking about is figuring out what your personal baseline for success is. What does success look like to you? It's also a discussion about gratitude. Now, I do not talk about gratitude too often. I know a lot of people do. And some people don't like the idea of gratitude. I don't know. It seems to have like a negative connotation with some people. But it's pretty saturated. It's one of those words that is thrown around a lot. But what does it really mean? I guess we know what it means, right? It's being grateful for what you have, et cetera, et cetera. But in this context, it's about, kind of looking at your life right now. I guess it's the same thing, right? It's being grateful for what you did, what you're doing, what you've created, all that good stuff. And then redefining kind of your success around that, So to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, let me just describe what my dream was how it kind of changed the last 7 years. I've basically been, I've had this agency for about 7 years, just short of 7 years. We're rounding out our seventh year. And in the first few years, I kind of was, like a lot of people do, they just kind of took what I could get. I didn't have like any specific whys and goals necessarily beyond the fact that I enjoyed what I did. So that was kind of my baseline at the time, was just, I enjoyed doing web development, web design. I like work, I work in WordPress. That would be my focus. And we'll see what happens. Threw a lot of stuff out there. And that first couple of years was pretty messy. But then as time goes on, I start building a team. I get larger contracts, and a lot happens. And then my dream starts to, then I start getting full of myself. No, I'm just kidding. Then I start thinking, you know what? I like this agency thing. It took, a couple of years in, I'm like, I really like where this is going. And then understand also contextually that in the first 5 years, it was growth. I was growing about 40, 50% a year, and which is good, right? I'm sure a couple of years ago, I sat down and was like, okay, let me see. Let me do the math here. If I do this 40, 50% for the next, I don't know, it worked out to like 6, 7 years or something. I don't remember, but it was doable because my goal or my thought process was that, that I would be doing this business for the next 20 years as long as I could because I enjoy what I do, right? So I'm in no total rush. This isn't like one those people out there that are trying to, build a business and flip it right away and get out of it right away and flip it or whatever. That's not like my exit plan was way off in the distance. I just wanted to build a good business and make a good living, et cetera, et cetera. But I had, this idea that, okay, I'm going to build let's say a $3 to $5 million agency, and that's my retirement plan. So I got this idea, this agency. It's going to be a boutique agency, just larger accounts, and not a gigantic team, but enough to handle that, and all the right people in the right seats, kind of thing. And that was kind of, my, or you want to call it North Star, or whatever. That was what I was focused on. That became a big part of my decision making and what I was doing, and that became. As I was building my team and making all the decisions and investing in the agency, which I did a lot of, I invested a lot into this agency. That for a while it worked. For a few years that worked, and it continued to grow, and continued, adding more contracts and more partnerships, and things were on the right track. And then 2024, midway through 2024, or probably earlier than that, things kind of started to flatten out a little bit. And the growth suddenly was like not happening. I'm like, maybe it's just a blip. And what I mistakenly did is I tried to maintain what we had in terms of a team. I had a pretty, for this agency, I don't know, I had like 8 to 10 people. Some of those are developers, project manager, admin, VAs and stuff. But I had built this team over a couple of years, and I was very committed to and determined to keep that team together. And unfortunately, I probably kept that team together a little too long. It's hard. It's hard for multiple levels. You never want to let people go. That's hard. But also because I built this thing, and I didn't I'm like, okay, what's let's keep building, right? But I had to, last year I had to start, letting people go, and we shrank, and then we grew again, and we shrank, and now we're in a place where we're about as shrunk as we're going to get. And I've changed kind of how I'm doing business. Now I have this year, I've chronicled a lot of this and what's happened or teased it here and there, and what's been going on with my business. I've had I do usually solos every 5 to 6 weeks or so on average. And I've talked about different things. I've talked about the burnout aspect of it. Do I quit? That aspect of it. When I was having a hard time earlier this year, how to experiment, take action and stuff to kind of combat things or do more. And then how I'm introducing AI. I've talked a lot about that and how that's doing a thing. And then, weighing I think I kind of landed, maybe the last 1 or 2 episodes ago, I think landed on kind of talking about weighing scaling versus, just the craft, craftsmanship, being involved with the craft more instead of not worried about scaling. And off of that, there's been an evolution, from there, my thinking, and I've let a few more people go, and like I said, we're kind of at a place now. I think we're stabilized. Hopefully we're good. My team technically hasn't, my business hasn't changed in terms of if we got a contract, me taking care of it or being able to build teams around things, I can still do those things. All the building blocks are there. It's just the core team is much smaller. And Matt is doing a lot more. I'm actually doing a lot more. I'm taking on projects. We, being in the trenches a lot more. My hat's changed. But so there's been decisions around, like we need to get leaner, we need to get more focused, and a lot of things going on in my head. And the challenge with that, though, is there's a psychological component to all this. And I am not going to psychoanalyze myself, but I know I've been struggling with it. Because the thing is, when you build something like that and you have your CEO hat, founder hat, and you're spending, there's pockets of time where you're like hiring and managing a large team, and you got a project manager reporting to you, and quality assurance, a dedicated quality assurance person. You have multiple developers and designers and the whole thing, and plus your VAs and the things you're doing, all the things you're doing, and the people involved with that. And then suddenly you find yourself back in your craft, and there's a smaller team, and you're doing more of I'm back into code, I'm back into WordPress, I'm back into, and other things. And you're doing more of the day-to-day operations. And that's shocking to a system. And I've talked about like I've enjoyed getting back into the code, and I do enjoy it. That's why I got into this business. I started out as a developer. This is what I enjoy doing. And I thought, at some point I decided to build an agency. But even with that, there's still been days where it's like hard to get motivated to do it. Like, I don't want to sit down and code right now. I don't, or you think you should be doing other things, I should be getting more sales. I should be doing more marketing. I should be, networking and doing all the stuff that build this big thing. And we've been doing that here and there. And this summer we actually did a lot of extra stuff to try to get more business and projects. But that wears on you after a while. And there's there's stress involved with that. There's pressure to keep the teams together and all this stuff. And eventually, and there's also this matter of, maybe this isn't meant, maybe I'm not meant for that original goal. Maybe things have changed. Let's reanalyze what we're doing in the current environment, what's happening. And so as I was doing that, like, I need to figure out how to get motivated. I need to figure out how to get up every day and be in this different frame of mind and be okay with it and be excited about it and be passionate about it again. And that is kind of the journey, the mental journey I've been on, is how to get into that every day. And I think I've started to figure that out by kind of reframing and reshaping who we are and what we do. Again, we had that big dream, and I sometimes I think you have these audacious, huge, big, audacious dreams, and you get so fixated on that, and you forget about the day-to-day. You forget about what you actually, why you started what you're doing, and you get so fixated on growth and all this stuff, and then when stuff does go sideways, you think you're failing. And maybe part of that's in here. Again, I'm not going to analyze myself, but maybe I feel a little bit like I failed, because when you have to let people go, or when you are downsizing and things aren't going, aren't a cakewalk. You do feel like, you're not getting the business. You do feel like, oh, what am I thought I knew what I was doing. And in business, it's like that too. Like, for years, I got maybe a little full of myself, right? Because things were growing every year. I'm like, I know what I do. I figured this out. I've had all these different businesses. I've life experience. I figured it out. I'm going to just be a rocket ship, And then business comes along. It's like, nope, you haven't learned this lesson yet. And this one too. and then there are bigger lessons than any other lessons you've had. That's been my story. but no, so what I've had to do, and what's kind of I starting to work for me here, and again, I'm hoping that this speaks to somebody, that this might help somebody else, is that I'm rethinking what my goals are, rethinking what my baseline success is, and being grateful for what I built. So that means that maybe being a big agency is not the goal. Being a $5 million agency and blah blah blah. Maybe I don't even call it an agency anymore, because to reach this is literally one of the things I'm thinking. Like, I don't even want to call myself an agency anymore. Now, I know there's actually a lot of young people that don't, like young people coming up. Us old farts like talk about agencies, but there's younger agencies coming up that they're like, we're not an agency, we're something else, whatever they are. They don't like to call themselves agencies. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'll call myself a web shop, web development shop, or web design shop, or maybe a studio, and I think of myself and I frame it smaller. And we're going to get into this. That doesn't mean I don't do big things, but this is what the goal here is. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at where we are right now, and I'm okay with it. I'm grateful for it. Because here's the thing. So even though we were up, when your revenue rises and you're reaching towards your goals, right? There's a lot of expenses. There's a larger team to take care of. And so, but when you shrink, like my take home hasn't really changed, which is interesting, right? When you grow big, you got a lot more costs. That doesn't mean, so like I can be at the size I am now, which is still a decent, but I'm making the same amount of money myself. But it's also about just being grateful for what you built. So we have some great contracts. We haven't really lost any like important agency partnerships that we've had for years. They're just not getting as big of projects or pulling us into things. So a lot of other people beyond us are struggling, and that trickles down to us not getting stuff. But we also have a contract with a direct client it's a rock star contract. We've had it for 4.5 years. Great company, great owners. I get along with them really, really well, and they treat me like family, and I love it. And it's a sizable contract that, and it involves maintenance, it involves building features and just doing everything related to web development and design, and keeping their sites up and running. Because they're a decent sized business, and it's it's a good contract. So we're actually in good shape. So looking at this, and I'm like, oh gosh, 5-6 years ago, I would love to be where I am today. Actually, 5-6 years ago, I would have made it, right? Well, maybe I did make it. Maybe I, stretched and I didn't, and then that part of it collapsed and stuff like that. But I've had this kind of base. And what if I take this base and I forget about that big goal up there and $5 million, 15 years from now, I'm going to sell this thing. Forget about it for a minute. What about if I'm just grateful for what I have and take care of what I have, make sure I continue to deliver and show up every day and provide value. And this is my baseline. If I don't grow, if I don't get any more opportunities and I stay here, I'm happy. Even though I'm in the code more, even though I'm more involved with that, even though I'm, I have a smaller team. Maybe that's who we are. That is who we are. Okay. So now I have a smaller team. I can still bring in people when I need them on larger projects. I could still spin up a team if I need to work, if, let's say it's a short-term or a longer-term project, I'll spin up a team or take a developer and still be able to do that stuff. But now I have arrived. I've been here the whole time. I love this idea. But the other part of this though is it really is helping me also frame like what does showing up and what does success look like on a daily and weekly and a monthly basis. Because before, like for a while, growth scaling was my measurement, right? My KPI, whatever you want to call it. Like if we got another big contract and we add another team member, we're growing. And that's what, success looked like for me, like kept going in that direction. So when that stopped happening, I'm like, oh no, I'm a failure. But I have to reframe that. If I go back to why I got started and doing what I'm doing, what I love is I love building websites. I love tinkering. I love messing around with websites. I like fixing little problems, troubleshooting, and all the things involved. I love it all. I love designing things. I love, all of that. That's why I got into it. So I got this big idea to build this agency thing, but at the end of the day, this was my passion. This is, if I get back to that and I start thinking about it from that perspective, like every day, like I'm delivering something, sometimes it might just be, hey, the marketing department needs a coupon for something and they don't, for some reason, know how to do it themselves. So they have Matt do it. Or it could be building a feature. Maybe it's a feature that takes me a day. Maybe it's a feature that takes me 3 weeks, whatever. But every day I'm delivering something. I'm looking at what am I going to deliver today? What am I going to accomplish today? Every single day and every week. And just look at it. Just don't even go beyond a week, just like what am I accomplishing this week? And really, really focus on that. And when I get up in the morning, it's like, that is my goal is to deliver something. And my ultimate goal is to deliver something that makes my client happy or my partner happy. That makes them smile. Like I love that. Like Friday, like I had a little side tangent story, but we've been actually working on a Wix project, and they brought us in because we do custom work, and there's a way to do JavaScript in Wix and code in JavaScript. So you can actually do some pretty advanced stuff in Wix. And it was related to like we had a outside service that we were be able to figure out what somebody's IP and location is, and then based on that it changes the displays, and there's some bunch of logic around that. And anyway, we had delivered it, so my developer that was helping with that leaves early in the morning because they work kind of overnight. It was gone. But we delivered it, right? My project manager, she shot it out to our partner, like, awesome. They're like, great, it looks great to me. And then, so that was it. I'm like, oh, awesome. So middle of the afternoon, I get a message from my project manager, said, kind of like, oh no, our contact at this agency came back. She said, I'm sorry I didn't catch this earlier, but this particular section on the homepage is broke. And they want to share this with the client today, right? And I'm like, so I hesitate for a second. I'm like, okay, so all the other things that I've got going on, what am I working on right now? What are priorities? I'm like, okay, so could it wait till Monday? Maybe, but I know they want to get this out today. So I jumped in there and grabbed the JavaScript, figured out the problem, and 10, 15 minutes later, I'm shooting her a message. I said, it's fixed. Clear your cache. Do a hard clear of the cache, but it's fixed. And away it went. But I loved that because what came back was awesome, or whatever she said, like, that's great or awesome, whatever. I knew she was excited because now she could turn around and she could deliver this. I love that. That's just a small thing, but that, kind of was a great way to close out the week, right? And me coming in as the superhero, solving the problem. Yeah. But I love that. And so that's the other piece of this. It's looking at where we are, being grateful for where we are, grateful we got what we got going on and what we've built, realizing that, oh my gosh, we actually did build something. And this is actually pretty incredible. Yes, we're we don't have that giant team that we had for a little while. Giant relatively. We're a boutique agency. So I think we had, even like February, March, we had built it up to like 12 people. And that's probably where we're maxed out. I don't know if I ever had more than 12. But anyway, but now like we're smaller and we, like, but it's okay because we still have good contracts. We just are, we don't have as many costs. We don't have as many people. So we're doing all right. And then figure it out, okay, yeah. So I like to be able to, I'm a very visual person. I want to like, how can I visualize my agency? Well, maybe we're not an agency. Maybe we're just this entity that gets stuff done. This is web design and development. I always knew that like, even if it came all the way back down to just me, I'm a freelancer, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm not at a point in my life, like I figured out what I love to do. So I'm not going to be pivoting to something else, to a completely different industry or job or something. Well, I guess depends what the pay is, but, but I'm typically, I'm going to be doing what I'm doing no matter what happens. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy just being a studio or just being unified web design. We don't have to even call ourselves anything. And I'm happy with the size of our team. And I think we got a really good handle because I could very easily, I know how to hire. I have a good process around that, whether it's hiring a developer that's in a specialty or somebody or bringing in a quality assurance person or a project manager, or I've done all that. And I can do it quickly if needed. But I could also spin up a team. I can do these different things. So I have capabilities all there. So we're actually in an amazing place, and we're just settled where we are right now. And I think that is something that, like, we're successful right now. We can be grateful for where we are right now. I think that's really important. The other important thing is, though, I can define that. I can forget about that $5 million goal and focusing just on revenue and growing. I can forget about that and just focus on what we have, retaining. Retaining is important. Retaining who we have, taking care of who we have, still looking for opportunities though. So even though I'm redefining, even though I'm like, this is, we're okay. This is great. If nothing changes, this is fantastic. I'm very grateful. But I'm also not going to be closed-minded and not look for other opportunities and not still network and still do all the things we're doing and have a podcast and all that. So something else might come along. And so I'm not closing off the bigger opportunities, but I'm just redefining what success is for me. And success is me being able to get up every day and do this business. And whether it doesn't matter if I'm in the code or, I'm in WordPress admin, adding content, fixing a button, building something with, that involves an API, I'm doing more and more things. It's crazy the things I do these days. I feel like I'm doing and maybe that's related to just the client I have. I get pulled in some crazy stuff, like other platforms we're integrating with and other teams I'm interfacing with. And it's fun. It makes it interesting. Always something new, but I love that. And so it's growth kind of becomes optional, right? From here. Like if I just think about it, like we've arrived, we're exactly where we need to be. And we make the best of that. And Matt can do what he needs to do financially. Then, growth is optional. It's not mandatory, and it doesn't have to stress me out anymore. I don't have to worry, and I'm probably focused on the right things now. I'm focused on quality. I'm focused on just delivering, good projects and features and taking care of people. And, it feels very freeing. And I'm excited, actually. This is, this coming week, I'm kind of really settling into this now. this is pretty fresh realizations. But I'm excited to wake up every day this week and just like, okay, what am I going to accomplish today? What's that? Deliver that task, solve that problem, make somebody smile. That's all I want to do. I just want to make my clients smile and happy, and when they're seeing things happen, especially things that affect their revenue, profits. But you can decide, what more looks like. You can decide, when it comes, you can decide to do it or not do it. I think that's actually a cool thing too, because I'm not as, it's not as important for me to, win that next project. I don't have to stress as much about it. I can just show up and be Matt. And if it works, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't, which, kind of how it works anyway. I am talking to other agencies. I've had at least 2-3 conversations with agency owners these last couple months, talking about helping them. One was actually Shopify. His agency only works with, some agencies are like this, which is good. They only work with certain types of clients, like certain revenue, like they have to make at least, let's say 100,000 or 250,000, or they have to be making X number of sales before they even work with them. And they don't build things from scratch. They have an existing business and they take them from there. And I talked to one agency, was like, the other things we can give to you. Like, okay. So the things like that, there's always some scenario where we can figure out where we can snap in and help somebody. So there's always, those things are out there. So things are still happening. There's still conversations happening. But it's all optional. Gratitude first, growth second. Maybe that's my new mantra. Gratitude first, take care of who we got, growth second. So if whether maybe this helps you now, maybe this is something happening now, or maybe this is something you can prepare yourself for, things are going to change. Business is rarely static. And who knows what's going on with the economy and the world. Things are crazy. But you can always, goals can change. Your why can change. Anything can change. Goals are good. It's important to have goals, and even those audacious goals, right? But you also have to be realistic sometimes. And, I know I have people on this podcast, or I have people, that I talk to that are like, everything's got to be big. And they might even disagree with that. You got to have an audacious goal. That doesn't mean that I don't build that agency. It just means that I'm going to ground myself a little bit more so I don't stress out so much. But yeah, like I said, be grateful for what you built, for what you have. And maybe what you have now, if you look around, or at some point, you're like, you know what? I'm happy with this. And maybe I'll invest in just staying where I am, and just do better with where I am. Or maybe I'm not meant to have, to do that. Maybe I don't even want that. There's scenarios where I've been in situations where I have had opportunities where I came out of the opportunity. I said, definitely don't want to do that again. Or I don't want to be like they are. I don't want that. That's good for somebody else. That's not me. But yeah, so reflect on that. Think about what you're doing. Like I said, maybe this is something that's going on now. Maybe there's something you can think about in the future, whatever. Hopefully there's some takeaway here, and this inspired you. And there's some takeaway there that'll help you out. But thanks for listening. I will be seeing you around. Thanks. Till next time. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Builders Podcast. One more quick note about our sponsors. At Unified Web Design, we're passionate about doing better together, partnering with agencies and businesses to deliver exceptional web design, development, and ongoing support. And UnifiedLabs.ai is where we explore smart, practical ways to integrate AI directly into your website and e-commerce flows. From intelligent chatbots to marketing automation to back-end reporting, all with a strong focus on user experience and making your systems work smarter. If you haven't already, subscribe or follow to stay updated on future episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, sharing it with someone who might benefit helps us grow this amazing community. Until next time, keep building smarter, bolder, and with purpose.